All right, so are you ready to dive into something kind of intense? We're talking psychopathic partners. But hold on, not like Hannibal Lecter, okay? We're going to get into the kind of manipulation that can happen in relationships, the kind that can be hard to spot.
Yeah, it's not always obvious, is it? What's wild is how it's often not like big, scary gestures, you know? It's
Mm,
more this gradual thing where someone's sense of self gets chipped away over time.
Totally insidious. And
Yeah.
lucky for us, our deep dive today is focused on an expert who really gets into that, what psychopathy can actually look like in a relationship. Don't worry, this isn't about diagnosing anyone.
No, not at all. It's more like the more we get this stuff, the more we can see those red flags, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's jump into their playbook. And I got to say, learning how they use charisma as a weapon, that's unsettling.
It's like they use it so strategically. Our expert was really clear about how they build this facade. Warm, caring, you name it. It makes it incredibly hard to see what's really going on, especially at the beginning.
Totally. It's like they're playing a role.
Yeah.
And then you've got that whole seduction phase.
Oh, yeah, the love bombing.
Yeah.
Big gestures, tons of praise, telling you they're in love super fast. It's easy to get swept up.
Oh, absolutely. But our expert explained the reason it works so well is actually chemical, right? Something about phenylethylamine.
Yes. Our brains make it when we're feeling that intense attraction, all those excited feelings, and this love bombing. It basically hijacks that system. So even if it's fake, your brain's getting flooded with those feel-good chemicals.
So you're basically wired to fall for it.
Hmm.
And the messed up thing is, it's not about a real connection for them, right? It's more like they're looking for,
A target, someone they can exploit, basically. And that can be emotionally, financially.
it's scary how much damage it can do to your whole life. Like it goes way beyond just a bad romance.
Yeah.
Did the expert have any examples of how someone's life might be impacted beyond just the relationship itself?
Oh, yeah. Like, say you're someone who loves helping your friends, right? You're generous, maybe loan money sometimes. A psychopathic partner might pick up on that and start asking for favors, loans, introductions to important people you know. It's a slow drain on you.
So manipulative. By the time you realize, you're in way too deep.
It's like they got you hooked with all that love bombing, your brain chemistry's working against you, and then the manipulation tactics really ramp up.
Like, is that where triangulation comes in?
Exactly. They bring in someone else on purpose, an ex, a coworker. It could even be a made-up person. The point is, it's designed to make you feel jealous, insecure, so you crave their approval even more.
It's wild how common that is, even in less extreme situations. Makes you think,
Seriously. Like, have you ever been crazy jealous and then realized later it was all because of how someone was acting? It's uncomfy to think about, but sometimes those are the things we got to unpack.
for sure. So we've got the charisma, the love bombing, the triangulation. What else?
Well, the expert talked a lot about how these relationships go in cycles. You've got the idealization phase, which we touched on, but then
Mm.
there's the devaluation phase.
Yeah, and that's where it gets really messed up. It's
Yeah.
not just a relationship that fades out. It's like this whole calculated thing the expert described.
Totally. It's that cycle of abuse, the idealization, all that intense stuff at the beginning. It's like setting the trap. Then, bam, devaluation time.
So like insults, putting you down, all that.
Exactly. They chip away at your confidence, make you doubt yourself. And the worst part, the worse it gets, the more you cling to how they were at the beginning, you know? Like chasing a fantasy.
It's so sad. But why is it so hard to leave even when you know it's bad?
Remember all those brain chemicals we talked about? That attachment is still there, strong as ever. Plus, there's the psychological impact of the abuse. The expert actually compared it to, get this, Stockholm Syndrome.
Whoa, seriously. I always thought of that with like hostages and kidnappers.
Right, but it's the same idea. Your sense of what's real gets so warped that you start identifying with the abuser. The worse they are, the more you might even defend them.
Wow, your own brain working against you. So if someone does get out, what's life like after all that?
The expert said it's like surviving a Category 5 hurricane.
Intense.
Intense is right. Your job, your friendships, even just trusting your own judgment, all that can be messed up.
It's way more than just a bad breakup then.
Way more. And the damage to how you see yourself, that's huge. Imagine feeling like a shell of who you were, doubting everything because someone systematically tore you down.
And it's not just the emotional stuff, right? We were talking about PTSD earlier. That's a real thing for a lot of people.
Huge. You don't even need one big, awful event to have PTSD. It's the constant stress, the walking on eggshells, never knowing what to expect.
So it keeps you in that fight or flight mode even after it's over.
Exactly. Oh, and then there's the amnesia trap, the expert called it.
Amnesia trap. What's that?
It's where you mostly remember the good parts, those highs from the beginning.
Blocking out all the bad stuff.
Kind of. Our brains are wired to avoid pain, right? But it's dangerous because it keeps you tied to that person.
Stuck in your own messed up memories. No wonder it's hard to break free.
Exactly. And on top of all that, you've got the trauma bond.
Right, right. Trauma bond. Remind me what that is again?
Think of it like those slot machines. Yeah, you keep pulling the lever. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but those wins are enough to keep you hooked.
So the love bombing is like winning. Even if the bad times are like losing, you chase those good moments.
You got it. It's brutal, but that's why people go back, even when they know it's toxic.
It's kind of reassuring in a weird way
Mm.
to know it's not just about willpower. Your brain's literally in on it. But knowing all this, it's got to help with healing, right?
Oh, definitely. Knowing is always step one. And the good news, recovery is totally possible. The expert was big on that.
That's good to hear because it's easy to feel like totally stuck. Like, how do you even start to put your life back together?
Yeah, well, the expert really emphasized that it starts with believing you can heal. Like really knowing you deserve better and you can get there.
Which I'm guessing is way easier said than done. After all that, just believing in yourself again.
Totally. It takes time. But one thing they talked about, it's about building what they called your council of sages.
Okay, Council of Sages. I like where this is going.
Right. So these are your people, the friends, family, maybe a therapist, support groups, whoever. People who've got your back, no judgment.
People who can help you see your own worth again.
Exactly. It's about getting your voice back and remembering, asking for help. That takes guts.
For sure. It shows how strong you are, actually. So, you've got your counsel. What else can help? Didn't the expert mention journaling?
Oh, huge. Writing can really help process all those feelings, the doubts, the fears, getting it out.
Like giving yourself permission to actually feel it all.
Yeah. And the cool thing is, when you journal, you start to see patterns. You figure out what triggers those bad thoughts.
So instead of just reacting to the trigger, you can be ready for it.
Exactly. And as you heal, it's not just about dealing with the bad stuff. It's about finding yourself again, the things you love, your passions.
Writing your own story. What I loved is how the expert talked about this. It's not just recovering, it's growing.
Right. Like you come out of it understanding yourself and people so much better. You know the red flags now.
Turning the bad into something good. And that's hopeful. Even when things feel impossible, you can rebuild. Stronger, even.
Couldn't agree more. It's your life. You get to choose how you move on from this stuff.
That is so important. If any of this has resonated with you today, if you're feeling lost, please know you are not alone. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away from something that hurts, set those boundaries, and make room for something better.